Tom Sawyer, he didn't persuade the kids to paint the fence.
Right, yeah.
Right? He just acted like he was having a blast painting the fence. All the kids wanted to have fun, so he let them have fun, and they painted the fence. That's how you do it. That's how it works.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales.
Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman. On today's episode is one of my dream guests. That's right. For the better part of the last, 5 years, I've had the name Tom Asacker on my list of my dream guests that I would be able to talk to and ask some poignant questions so I could learn and hopefully you can learn. And all of that happened, and I learned yet again a valuable lesson. Don't be afraid, man. Go. Ask for what you want. It's easy for me to tell that to other people. When I finally did that to Tom, reached out to him and said, hey, man, I think you should come on my show. Here's why. In like 6 hours, he said, yes, would love to. And he was lovely and patient. I totally forgot to hit record for the first time in like 400 episodes after 12 minutes, and I apologized, and he was totally gracious and understanding, and we restarted, and I believe it was better the second time. So who is Tom Asacker, and why did I want to have him on the show at a very important time in my career, 2 years after launching my own business? This business, things were not going well. Shockingly, it was 100 times harder than I anticipated. I wasn't really making any money. I was kind of clueless. And a series of things happened that really helped me continue to forge ahead, I believe, more intelligently. One of them was his book that came up at the right time, and it was called The Business of Belief. And that's something that we'll talk about in this episode. All right, but who is Tom Asacker? Well, this is his bio off the back of his book called Your Brain on Story, which is like the exact opposite of Donald Miller's Building a Story brand. His bio reads, Tom Asacker is often described as a creative force, albeit a wayward one. He has been an artist, professional magician, obviously, I couldn't leave that alone, an award-winning inventor, we talk about innovation, and screenwriter. He's given a TED Talk, which we do talk about, because he gave a TED Talk on why TED Talks don't change behavior, which is amazing to me. He was a foosball champion. To not derail us, I did not ask about that. He holds medical patents and hitchhiked on airplanes. I don't know what that means. I didn't ask him about it. Maybe that's something for round 2 down the line. So that's who Tom Asacker is. I wanted him on the show to talk more about how we can all think better about our own thinking. And he talks about leadership and management and this very simple construct that is so complex, which is you have desires, which is people have desires. Those inform their beliefs, which drive action. Desires, beliefs, action. All right, how hard is that? Turns out incredibly difficult. And that is what we unpack here. Again, we also talk about improving other people's self-awareness and why comfort is the killer of creativity. You, my friend, are in for a treat. I was thrilled to speak with Tom. And again, he was very kind and gracious. And I think you are going to get a lot out of this. Believe he can help us all think better on this journey that we're on. So as always, thank you for listening. Please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Tom Asacker. Mr. Tom Asacker, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Bradley, for having me. I appreciate being here.
Thrilled you're here. Without a doubt, I can tell you that I've been reading your stuff for more than a decade, and it has really helped me think about my own thinking and hopefully, knock on wood somewhere, improve my own self-awareness a little bit. There's one place I have to start, but growing up, you played for the football team, so you're kind of in the jock crowd. You were also part of the chess club, so you got some range here. You can You can connect with different folks in the school setting. You graduate, Tom. You've got 2 degrees, economics, business management, and you turn pro in magicianship. I want to know, number 1, what did your parents say? And number 2, were you dating anyone at the time?
Okay. Yes, I was dating someone at the time, and I cannot remember what she thought about what that decision was and whether it made any sense or not. I can tell you that my father was totally confused, kind of rocked him a little bit. He would introduce me to his friends and he would say, "This is my son, Tommy. He spent 4 years going to college and got 2 degrees, and now he's a clown." He didn't even say magician. I don't know what this clown thing was about, but so yeah, I mean, look, I got the opportunity. Someone saw me doing some close-up magic and card tricks and things in college, and was involved with a company that was looking for someone that could be a performer and a magician. So I just jumped on it and did it. I thought it'd be a great opportunity, and it was. And I learned a lot and met a lot of great people.
I'm fascinated just about a career in such a thing. I'm going to set those aside for now. What I am curious to learn, though, Tom, is I'm almost betting there's a handful of insights that came out from you doing this just about performing, connecting with the audience, attention, and the sleight of hand that surely was really valuable later on that maybe at the time was somewhat non-obvious. What sticks out to you from your investment kind of in being a professional magician for some time?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I learned some core principles from the pros early on. And doing sleight of hand, I also became very aware of some principles that are applicable, honestly, in all areas of life. One of the core principles I learned was from a particular pro was always start a performance with your second best trick.
Okay.
And then end it with your very best trick. So, and his rationale is that those surprises, those emotional peaks are what people are going to remember and share with other people. They're not going to remember everything in between. They can't remember everything. So give them a high at the beginning that sets up their expectations for what's to come, and then end with some blockbuster trick where they walk away and tell everybody that they know, wow, you need to see this performer. So that was a big one. Another one for me was that, people are suspending, it's called the willing suspension of disbelief. I mean, they're walking in here knowing you're not really sawing the woman in half, They're going to be entertained and to be surprised. And so they know what you're doing. They know it's a performance. It isn't real. But they want to get lost in it. They want to feel it. And they want to enjoy it. So you've got to be aware of these desires, and you can't violate them. You can't go in there and say, okay, I'm going to saw this woman in half and I'm going to gross everybody out with this trick. And really, no, they're there to enjoy themselves. You don't do something like that. And the attention thing, I mean, that was, if you've ever seen anyone do magic, ask them if they've done magic for like toddlers, because toddlers haven't been conditioned. Their perceptions, their expectations, all of that hasn't been conditioned to follow what a magician's doing. And I've done it. I've done tricks to little kids and they'll say, no, mister, it's still in your hand, when you've got them looking somewhere else, because they just aren't trained yet and they're not conditioned. So how people's attention and expectations work is how you bring what you do to life. You have to really understand that experiential flow of how their minds work. And you don't want to be doing anything that disrupts that. If you think, oh, that will be clever, that's not clever. You'll start to lose them and they'll become uncomfortable and they won't enjoy the performance. So those kind of the 3 top things I learned doing that.
Well, that's neat. Well, I want to ask you about expectations on one specific thing. You did a TED Talk in another country about how and why TED Talks don't work. How did you pull that off?
Okay, well, that TED Talk was in Boston. So it was at the TEDx Cambridge, which is like the biggest TEDx in the country. But you're going to have a hard time believing how this got pulled off, because it's going to surprise probably people listening as well about how to I don't know, get on a TED stage because everybody wants to get on a TED stage, right?
Sure.
And I had just published the book, The Business of Belief, and that took off. And I was out teaching it. Yeah. And I was out teaching the concepts. And interestingly, I would work with big organizations and some small teams. And then I would come back months later to see, okay, how did the implementation go? What are they doing? And what I discovered is that they were doing the opposite of what I was teaching. And I was scratching my head. I couldn't understand any of this. And I got up the gumption to ask a particular CEO of a major corporation during an event, what was I said, I was puzzled. And I looked at the CEO and I said, look, what did I do wrong? They're doing opposite of what we talked about. And the CEO said to me, Tom, listen, you didn't do anything wrong, but you got to remember when people went back to their jobs, that's what they're doing. So all that you came in and taught, and I said, yeah, but they said they believed it. They believed in what we were doing. And I just got this look. So I walked away and I was kind of depressed. I mean, I was sitting at my desk and I'm saying, what the hell's going on here? And I got a call and it was from the organizer from this TED event that read the book, and a whole bunch of people on the team read the book. And because I was like in a down mood, the organizer said, we'd love to have you come and do a TED Talk on this book. Now, remember, I'm looking at the book going, this doesn't do anything. Nobody's doing what's in the book. So I said, nah, I don't want to do it. And like the phone went dead. I'm listening. I said, hello? And she said, what do you mean you don't want to do it? I said, look, I don't think these TED Talks do anything to change anyone's behavior. and I'm telling you. And then she said, why don't you come and give a talk about that? And I said, what? And she said, why TED Talks don't change people's behavior. And I said, you will let me come down there and do that? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, I'll do that. And that's how it happened. That's how it worked out.
By the way, that has to be the most attractive thing ever psychologically, when you have like, we have this gift, everybody wants in, and you're like, I don't want in. Why? Because it doesn't work. They're like, what? Who is this guy? That is fantastic.
And it wasn't a tactic. It was, I didn't want to do it.
Well, it had me thinking about the NFL draft is coming out, and I love football. And years ago, I'm sure you heard of him, Richard Thaler is kind of this behavioral economics guy. And he wrote this paper, and it was called Overconfidence and Market Efficiency in the NFL. And they said, listen, we've studied every single NFL draft. People undervalue future picks that are high for the short term. Nobody knows any two quarterbacks or linemen or linebackers picked in back-to-back selections at the same position. It's a coin toss. Nobody knows. You should stock picks and don't try to overload this year to pick the winner. The Redskins hire him, and this is, I want to say, well, this is the year, I don't know if you're a football fan, but they end up selecting RG3. So they pay them a couple $100,000. They write this whole paper, and they're like, listen, if you remember nothing, just remember this. Don't go all in on one quarterback that you think is the real deal. They leave. That is exactly what they do. For about 18 months, the Redskins look like geniuses. Over the long run, it was a waste of a bunch of draft picks and set them back years. Long rambling thing where I'm taking away from you sharing insights, Tom. Why is that? What can we do as anyone internal to an organization or external as consultants like you and I to help people stop doing things that they know aren't really helping them achieve their goals? When we know that we often come in here, make advice, and everyone's nodding their head yes, and we leave and they kind of do the opposite. Is there anything we can do from the outside?
Yeah, we have to help them get at the logic behind what these wants are that they have. And there's a lot of ways to get at that, right? You ask a lot of questions, a lot of whys, and then you show them Tom Brady, and you say, okay, remember this guy?
Yeah.
Right? You show them examples. You try to make it clear to them that thinking that they have is not thinking that's grounded in reality and in logic. And if they can see that, then I think that their wants can then evolve from there. So it's important to realize that the things that they want, they believe in it. They want to believe in it. And that's hard to overcome. That's hard to overcome.
You spelled this out real simply. You said, listen, if you understand people's desires, those desires lead to beliefs, and those beliefs lead to action. You say that, you wrote that. I'm nodding my head saying, yes. On one hand, this seems so simple, and yet I feel like some days I'm working my tail off trying to follow this, and I'm largely unsuccessful. Does anything come to mind where you say, I see a lot of people who are trying to really be persuasive and influential to help other people, and they don't realize they're not being nearly as persuasive as they can be because they continue to do this? Or is there a top 2 or 3 or 1 you'd say on the not to do list if we want to be more persuasive and follow that desires, beliefs, action?
Yeah, well, you just answered it in the question, which is, if you understand people's desires, right? So that's step 1.
Okay.
Let's figure out what those desires and beliefs are. And then you give them what they want to fulfill those desires. You don't have to persuade anybody to do anything, right? And look, Tom Sawyer, he didn't persuade the kids to paint the fence.
Right, yeah.
Right? He just acted like he was having a blast painting the fence. All the kids wanted to have fun, so he let them have fun, and they painted the fence. That's how you do it. That's how it works.
I've never thought of it this way. And on one hand, I feel like, oh, great, I'm ahead of the curve, I'm being smart. But I didn't realize it, so I think, nope, false, Hartman, you're dumb. One of my old bosses in my former corporate career said something that has stuck with me. I think about it often. It's one of our core values, and it's fun ain't free, and it never goes on sale. And we were in construction. We were closing 5 houses a day. We were working crazy hours. We were working Saturdays, and we loved every minute of it because our team, our leaders, they made it fun, and it was a community, and we worked so hard, and we were successful. But and it was like, that stuck with me. I'm like, hey, if we can have fun while we're doing hard things. I never really thought about it in the way that you did, but I don't know, does that resonate with you at all? Or how do you think about that?
It resonates it's so powerfully that people can't even see it. They can't see it. The Red Sox, with those bunch of idiots, won the World Series because they were having fun. That's why they won. It wasn't because they were better. They were having more fun. They were looser than everyone else. That's the reason they won.
Yeah, that's right. They did. I forgot. They called them the idiots that entire year. That was their nickname. And they were like,
they call themselves idiots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin Millar and, Johnny Damon and all those guys, they just had fun.
Mm-hmm. When did you really start doubling down on thinking about your thinking? Was there an event, or was this some, basically trajectory where ever since you were young, you just started digging in just a little bit more and more? Or was there like a seminal moment that you said, all right, I need to dive in? Because your books, I think, could be classified, or they are, maybe you do, as really philosophy books of like understanding the rational and completely irrational ways that we think that affects everybody. When did you start really intently down this path?
Yeah, I don't think there was a particular day. It started when I was really young, because I was the baby of a baby in 2 huge families. So I had dozens and dozens of close relatives, aunts and uncles. I don't even know how many first cousins I had, right? 60, 70, I don't know. And so growing up, I'm watching all of these people, and I'm listening to them. This is not from a distance. This is people around me. And I'm listening and watching people, teachers, coaches, priests, right? Ministers, all of these. I'm watching and listening. And all I saw was inconsistencies. This person's telling me this is the way to live. This one's saying that this is the way to live. And I'm watching all these people to see, okay, if they're all living the right way, where's the happy one? Where's the one without all the strife and without the conflict? And I'm not seeing it. And that's when I said, wow, this is really interesting. They all have different thoughts and different beliefs that aren't working, and they're all trying to push them down onto me. And which one am I supposed to grab of the ones that aren't working? And that's when I said, okay, this is where I have to understand this. And I've spent the rest of my life trying to understand this with clients, with friends, with whoever,
That's wild. Well, I think about this moment in everyone's lives. Typically, sooner or later, there's a moment in time where you get the first inkling that my parents aren't 100% geniuses, infallible. And then you look back and you're like, there were a few things where I remember as like a 9-year-old thinking, that doesn't seem like the right idea. And that's what we did. And bad things happen. But once you start to kind of crack that a little bit, then you start looking around and like, wait a minute, what's with all these people? But I don't know. I don't know about you, but I read a lot. I read a lot of business books and things like this. And sometimes it's this healthy sense of skepticism. And that's, I'm interested to kind of, when it comes to doubt and skepticism, I feel that's a slippery slope where I know a lot of people who are successful, they don't seem happy and they are just skeptical on everything. And there's just a lot of stuff, especially in innovation, which I know your name is on a patent, or at least one. You won an innovation award. As you start thinking about the possible and the future, there's an element of skepticism that comes with that. But how do you maybe think about that in terms of business and innovation, on when doubt can be helpful or maybe it can hold other folks back?
Yeah, one of the things you said that I find interesting is that you said that some of these successful people are skeptical about everything. And that's not true. What they're not skeptical about are the patterns of thought and behavior that they're into. That comforting feeling is what's keeping them stuck in that pattern. So they do believe in that pattern. Otherwise, they would break out of that pattern. And the interesting thing is that comfort that's what kills creativity. It destroys it, because creativity emerges from curiosity, from not knowing, right? It's like you get a glimpse of something that's interesting or that puzzles you, and you move in that direction, right? You don't look at it and dismiss it. You don't say, what a waste of time. Well, that's bullshit, whatever. You look at it and you say, okay, there's mold growing on one of my Petri dishes, and it's screwing up my bacteria study. Now, 99 out of 100 people say, all right, toss it out and start another one, right? No, but this one guy says, no, what is this? And we end up with penicillin, right? You're working on a radar project and you're walking through the plant. And as you're walking, you look down and you notice that the chocolate bar in your pocket has melted. What do most people do? They say, oh, shit. And they say, how can I hide this? Maybe I'll go to the bathroom. Maybe I can clean it. No, one guy said, how the hell did this melt? And he ends up developing the microwave technology and microwave ovens and everything else, right? I can give you dozens of examples, but people hate this. They hate the unknown. They hate anything that seems like it's a waste of time. Like, what's in it for me? I mean, picture it. You're Jackson Pollock. You're outside. You got a big canvas that you're getting ready to paint a painting, and some paint drips from your brush down onto the canvas. What do most artists do? They go, oh, shit. And they get some turpentine and they wipe it up. He looks at it and he goes, whoa, what the hell is this? Now, why won't other people do that? Well, for one thing, like I said, they don't want to waste time. They're trying to be productive. But the other thing is, can you imagine you're sitting there going, I'm going to make a drip painting? Your mind obviously then says, what are you, insane? Have you lost your mind? Do you want to lose your reputation? You're going to lose all your money. That's what's doing it. This time, reputation, money, productivity, what's in it for me, that kills creativity. It kills it in innovation, you know?
Well, I'm sure you deal with this a lot in terms of leadership and the coaching that you do with leaders. I had someone tell me a long time ago, especially on the job site, when you're seeing things that are happening and you're ready to pull your hair out and you're like, why? He said, don't get frustrated. Try to have no emotion other than thinking, that's interesting. Why would someone behave this way? Because even if they're not thinking, there's some habit. There is something that is driving this behavior. And if you approach it with anger and frustration and you just try to solve it immediately versus taking a step back and be like, okay, let's take it back a few and let's view this as a curiosity, even though sometimes you're ready to pull your hair out. He's like, the insight is potentially there as opposed to just steamrolling it and going to the next thing. Do you feel, how much of that is due to just our need to be efficient and productive, that we don't have time to be curious about the mold growing? Because, man, I've got another 1,000 Petri dishes that I had to look after.
No, that is a big part of it, right? Like, you can't innovate if you're trying to make it happen. That's not how innovation works. You have to allow it to emerge. You don't cause it. It comes out through curiosity, through experimentation, through learning, right? And if what you're doing is so focused on the outcome, right? So the process isn't interesting to you now. You're the outcome. That is it. Let's get the outcome straight. Okay, you're a golfer. You're doing everything right that you've learned your whole life, and you get up to the tee and you slice the hell out of the ball. Do you say to yourself, shit, throw your club in the water? Or do you say, fascinating, I did everything the same way and I sliced it. What did I do? What happened? What's my stance? What's going on here? Right? This is how you get the insights. And you have to get out of the way of it. Right? You have to let it come through you. And if you're in a hurry and if you've got a lot to do, how are you going to ever let that come through? It just won't happen.
I'm curious to get your help on I'm not going to go into too much detail, a current situation I am dealing with. We've tried a few different tactics on somebody that we enjoy working with, believe the results in the future are well worth the effort. We are struggling to communicate and coach someone to help them improve their own self-awareness of just understanding their impact on other people. A couple subtle attempts so far have proven unfruitful, Tom. When it comes to helping people, and obviously your work with leaders, that's a huge part of it, right? Of helping people understand your self-awareness and how you can impact other people. Any insights, recommendations, not to do, anything come to mind helping other people improve their self-awareness?
Yeah, I'll give you the biggest one. And this is the one that I would give to everyone that's in any business, any organization, on any mission, any job, anything. If they don't want it, you're not going to be able to give it to anyone. Right? Desire drives everything in the marketplace. I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs, inventors, executives, people that will come to me and I will say, what makes you think that your audience wants this? And they'll say, well, they have to want it. It's better than the other thing. It's this, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's this or it's that. Or I said, that doesn't tell me anything. How do you know that they want it, that they're aching for this? And they'll say, well, I don't know. And I'll say, then don't do it. Look, I was hired years ago by an entrepreneur, inventor, and he created diamond scalpels. Okay, and I said to him, what's a diamond scalpel? And he said, Tom, when my wife is a cardiac nurse, when they do open heart surgery and they have to cut in to these arteries and things that are calcified, he said it's like a rock to try to get through there. And with the scalpels that they're using, they have to make these cuts 3 or 4 times to get it to cut. And I said, oh, and I said, you don't have to with yours. He goes, oh no, it's a diamond scalpel. I said, okay. He said, everyone's going to want this. I said, okay. He said, will you work with me to get it in there? I said, okay. I said, but first, I want you to give me one of these. Tell me a cardiac surgeon that you know that endorses it, and I want to go have a meeting with him. And he said, okay. So he gave me these. He gave me the doctor's name, the big shot, high paid cardiac surgeon at a hospital. I got the meeting. I sat down with him and I printed out a fake order form. And I said to him, we want to thank you for endorsing this. And our way of thanking you is we're going to give you an order, the first order, 80% off the price of this. So I just want to get this order written up for you. And he looked at me and said, no. I said, what? He said, we can't buy that. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, that 80% off, that's like still 10 times more than we're paying for the ones we're using. I said, what's that have to do with anything? You can use this over and over and over again. He said, no, that's a diamond scalpel. If someone drops that on the floor during surgery, it's destroyed. He said, we're dropping these things left and right all day long in surgery. I can't buy any of these. This guy didn't know that. You see, he was so hopeful. And I went back and told him, I said, look, I'm going to tell you right now, unless you can figure out how to make that thing retract if somebody's hand comes off of it, you're not going to sell anything. And that was the last time I did business with him.
Now, I'm not in the scalpel buying business, but I'm like, I've never heard of that before. It sounds kind of great. Also sounds pricey, but you know, what the hell do I know? But yeah, I think part of this too is fascinating when there's a new process, maybe it's internally or a new product. I know I've been guilty of this. Is part of this is you have to believe beyond all sort of recognition that this is worth your time and money and make the passion to drive it. Part of this is your own suspension of disbelief. Like, I'm going to will this thing in. And oftentimes, well, I don't think I've ever shared this on a podcast. I went through business cards, website, everything. The name of my first company was Redhead Construction Spanish Solutions.com, Tom. This was a thing. It was out there. Nobody said, that's like 39 letters. Like, and, but it was like, I believe in this so much. And then we got there and someone said, it barely even fits on your business card. He's like, I'm never going to type this. And I went back and I said, all right, we've been in business.
I love it. I think it's funny. I would have done business with you just because it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny because I had 13 years and we made it out of the darkness. But what's your advice to folks? Because I think you do need a little bit of a rational belief in what you're doing to overcome hundreds or thousands of little variables of these things. But at a certain point too, you got to put it in front of somebody to say, are you willing to buy this? How do you help folks kind of figure that out, that gray area?
Well, you see, that's the key. I mean, look, people can sit and obsess over names and logos and all of that kind of stuff that, honest to God, people don't really care. They don't care. Look, I need a roof on my house, okay? So a few weeks ago, I'm looking around. I send out some emails to some roofing companies. And one guy, he shows up in my driveway to look at the house. And the guy pulls up in this pickup truck that's decked out with his name all over the truck. I mean, it's like bold, crazy colors. And I said to myself, okay, if this guy believes in his shit that much, that he's willing to put his name on this gigantic truck, and from what I've been told, there are dozens of these trucks driving around in the state, right? I said, and then the experience I had with him told me, okay, he knows. I mentioned something. I said, hey, I heard that Home Depot is buying up a roofing supplier. Sure. And then he goes off on and giving me all kinds of things that are going on in the industry. So I'm seeing this guy loves what he does. He knows it inside and out, every little detail, which developed a trust in me for this person. I didn't care what his name was. It could, like you said, it could have been the redhead roofer from such and such Kalamazoo. I don't care. It doesn't matter. So it's to understand what the desires are that people have and how are they making meaning around that, around what you're doing. How are they feeling when they're interacting with you, when they see what you're doing and why, what's going on. And then you've got it figured out. I'm not saying it's easy to do that. I'm saying that is the essence of it.
Yeah, you're right. I want to ask you, tell me about I Hear Dead People. I said, listen, I'm impressed with your work. I've been reading your books. You want to come on? I largely delegate all of the work here. Try not to kind of screw up. Try to remember to hit record and, kind of sit back and let the magic happen. That's one way to do it. You saw that and said, you know what I think would be like 100 times harder? Like, what if we research the hell out of people like Carl Jung and Jesus and Plato and Marcus Aurelius? Then we obviously wrote the hell out of these scripts, and then we recorded and used voices interviewing dead people. How on earth did you and Dorian end up thinking this is what we should do? Like, tell me how I Hear Dead People came out as a podcast.
Well, I'm glad you can see what's behind the curtain of this.
Yes.
I mean, it was a long process. It very, very deep and detailed. I don't even know how it happened. I mean, I'm watching people share all of these videos and memes and people talking about Nietzsche, people talking about Plato and talking about Jesus. And I went, it's really interesting. It's other people talking about them. Wouldn't it be interesting if we have them come on and we interview them? Right. And when I said that, like the people I said it to went, what are you talking about? And I said, no, we can do it. What we have to do is we have to make sure that we really deep dive into all of the concepts. We have to tease it apart. We can't just be ridiculous. And we'll try to make it entertaining at the same time and see what happens. So I called some people that I know and, copywriters, designers, voice actors, all these, and they went, okay. And so it was a lot of fun. I learned an awful lot from doing it. And I just do think if I get an idea, I am deathly afraid of not doing it. Not of doing it. That doesn't scare me at all. I'm deathly afraid of not doing it because I'm going to tell you something. And I'm not saying this like bragging or humble bragging or anything. I cannot begin to tell you the number of things I have seen coming in the future and have told people about, and I didn't do it myself. And it really, I can't even believe it. I sent a proposal. I won't tell you who the company is. I sent a proposal in early 2000, late 90s. I think it was the late 90s to one of the biggest pharmacy chains in the world. And I gave it to the vice president of marketing. And I said, here's what you need to do. I wrote out a plan. I said, you need to go buy the URL drugs.com and you have to start figuring out how to provide these medications through the mail. The woman threw me out of her office. She told me that I was insane. Like, what are you insane? Who the hell's going to go on the internet? Nobody's going to go on the internet. They're never going to get their drugs through the mail. I told bankers, nobody's going to do their banking on the internet. You are out of your mind. Nobody's going to trust anything like that. So I'm usually way ahead. So if you're going to ask me, what do I see? Just remember, you're not going to see it now. It's probably going to be 5 years from now or something.
Well, I was really impressed. And it also had me just thinking about some version. I'm sure it is the present, but I think we're going to see more of it in the future of how do you educate people? Somewhere, someone is sitting in a classroom at the collegiate level, learning about Carl Jung and is just ready to pull their eyeballs out of their skull because it's so boring when the content in this individual is so fascinating and changed the world. And finally, somebody stumbled upon your podcast, and you guys have about 15 minutes, and then you kind of do a recap on it. This is a fantastic way to be entertained and to learn and have it synthesized. I'm like, this is part of the future of learning. So I don't know, have you collaborated with any sort of university or any on that?
I have seen some private schools, high schools and universities looking at it.
Okay.
So I know that that's happening. I haven't heard from any of them yet, but there is no doubt in my mind that this could be a semester curriculum, just these 6 individuals, and it would change students' lives. That's how my life got changed, was being introduced to these types of philosophies and these great people in high school. That changed everything for me, was getting these ideas. Just having somebody sit down and listen to the Jesus interview. I've heard people call me and say, that just blew my mind. Basically what Jesus is saying is life is all about relationship, but we don't see it. We don't understand it. And so if you see these things, that all of the ideas are out there, right? Everything that we need to know about how to live a good life, it's all out there. What we're doing is we're looking at it through our lens of what's in it for me. How does it work for me? right? And that's why we're missing these messages. You know, it like I said, with the people, the curious innovators, they didn't look at it and go, what's in it for me? They didn't. They said, why is chocolate melting in my pocket? Why is this mold growing? And not what's in it for me. Let me just go investigate it. So I agree with you. So if you know anybody that wants to put a course together, then just have them reach out to me and we'll figure out how to make it happen.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we link to the podcast, I Hear Dead People. By the way, your artwork for the podcast itself, I don't know who did that. I don't know how you guys got to that. It's amazing. As soon as I saw it, everything, even you got the little audio wave over the forehead that I didn't even see before. The forehead. I'm like, just so good. It's fantastic. So congrats on that.
I'm drinking my tea from my Nietzsche mug right now. So
that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So
all right. Last question here as we kind of go. Tell our audience about Unwinding Want. Kind of what's going to be in there. When is that coming out in the future? And how is it going to help people?
Yeah. All right. So this is, I've been working on this for a while, and it's a really small book. And that's probably why it's taken me so long. You know, I don't remember who said it once, but, you know, basically, the hardest thing to do is to give a short message to somebody, right?
100%.
One, and you touched on it a couple times during this call. One of the unanswered questions that lingered in my mind since the release of The Business of Belief was, and will stick with me and follow what's really like strange. If people's desires drive their beliefs and their behaviors, which, by the way, I have no doubt about. I have no doubt about that. Then why do so many people, more recently as well, exhibit these chronic symptoms like anxiety, depression, unwanted behaviors and habits? If what they desire is driving all that, how can that be? What's going on? There's a disconnect somewhere, right? It would be like saying, well, you desire to eat onions, but every night you have an upset stomach, right? Like, what? Wait a minute. What's going on here? So I've been processing this now for years, subconsciously. And I woke up one morning and I said, oh, I see this. I see what's going on. It's because people don't really know what they want. They think they know what they want, right? They based on whatever, but they don't really know what they want. And their minds are keeping them hypnotized in these patterns. They use various words that keep them hypnotized. People use it with me, and I usually call them out when they use it. They'll say things like, I have to. And I'll say, tell me what that means. I have to. Some guy was late once to like a cookout, friend of mine. And I went up to him and I said, he was like an hour late. I said, where have you been? He said, I had to mow the lawn. And I said, what does that mean? What did you have? A guy with a gun to your family's heads? And he just walked away. He fluffed it off. But what I realize is it's a defense mechanism. Because if you say to yourself, if you say to yourself, I have to work late, I can't be at my children's play. That's different than saying, I want to work late. Right? Much different. So that's what this book is going to do. It's going to unwind all of these absurd psychological hypnosis that we're doing, allow people to get at their real wants. Like you mentioned this particular person you're doing some consulting work with, and you want them to understand the effect that they're having over the relationships with other people based on how they communicate, whatever. Guess what? If that person wants to change the dynamics, not themselves, but the dynamics, because that's how it works. You have to first get this person to say, what I'm doing at work is what I want to be doing. That is the hardest thing for someone to say, because now it brings it to a conscious level. I am yelling at people because I want to yell at people. Then you can start getting into, why do you want to yell at people? And if you get deep enough down, this person will see what they're doing and it'll disappear. They won't do it anymore because they can see it, but they can't see it right now. It's just this hypnosis that's happening. And they'll say things like, I can't help it. Like my dad yelling at me as a kid. My mother would say, your father can't help it. It's like, okay.
Well, I think you're right. My mind's spinning mainly on, only on my own behaviors. And I'm saying, like, as our business grows, I have to be doing these things, which is stopping me from getting this, which I know will help us grow faster, but I can't, and it's all these things. So your idea of like, hey, how do we unwind those things? And let's be honest with yourself. I know on some level I could stop doing them now. I'm not, I haven't. And there's anxiety, there's, shame. There's these other things that come up with it.
All that goes away. All of that will go away. If you just say one thing, this is a tough thing to say. If you say, what I'm doing and thinking and allowing to continue is what I want. Psychologically, that's all you have to do. It's what I want. Now your mind will release the regret. It will release everything. And it'll turn into, like you said, it'll turn into curiosity. Okay, hold on. If I want this, there's got to be a reason. There's value in this if I want this, right? Now your brain will start searching for the value. And if it can't find the value, it'll say, okay, I can't find the value. It still needs to be done. Maybe I can find someone else to do this. Or see what I mean? It will allow you to tease it out so that what you're really doing in life is what you want to do. And then you don't die with regrets anymore, right? It just goes away. You get to the end and how was your life? Good. Everything I did, I wanted to do. So it's coming. It's coming. I'm working on it. I'll send you a copy when it's done. You can let me know what you think before I send it out there.
Oh, and I would love that. I would love that. Well, this is a great place to end where I get to peel myself off the leather couch. So feel free to send me an invoice for the therapy session. I'm a fan of what you do. I know I have benefited greatly from this, of just understanding, I'd say first and foremost, these irrational and occasionally rational things that I'm doing. How do I stop doing that? How do I do more of this? And can I understand and be curious about other people to try to help them or, be a better friend to them. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for your work. It's really valuable. And we'll make sure in the show notes to the podcast, your other books. And yes, when Unwinding Want comes out, love to read it. And anyway, thank you. Appreciate your time, Tom.
No, thank you. This is great. Thank you very much.
All right then, friends, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Tom Asacker. I would strongly recommend you take a peek at his TED Talk. He's got a lot of content that is out there. He's a really powerful keynote speaker, and my mind is already kind of wheeling here as I try to figure out how we can use these principles within our own team, but also within our own community, our clients, and our friends. Again, the book that got this all started for me is called The Business of Belief: How the World's Best Marketers, Designers, Salespeople, Coaches, Fundraisers, Educators, Entrepreneurs, and Other Leaders Get Us to Believe. It's a very short book. Lots of white space, short words, short sentences. It's like 100 pages. I would strongly recommend it to a friend. All right then, friend, I am done. You are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.